Welcome to the 525th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thanks for listening. Temperature is 88 to 95, feels like 100 to 103, makes for some very, very hot long runs. But I'm hoping that the heat, again, helps me with the altitude next weekend. So I am doing the finishing touches, really did most of the finishing touches this past weekend for my long run training for the Leadville 100 Race Across the Sky, which will take place August 16th, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday, starting at 4 a.m. Mountain Time. So my last run was 19 miles outside and 1 mile going up a hill on a treadmill, and then the next day I did 11. So I had 2 hot runs this weekend to kind of go through gear, test out nutrition that I'll use, hydration that I'll use, and shoes that I'll use, and the rest of the planning, besides all the things you need to take, will be, I actually have been laying out pacing and charting for me and my crew. So if you look at the elevation course for the Leadville 100, they're up and down sections, and you can see the grades and flat versus hill versus downhill. And I've run most of the sections in training runs in the past couple of years. So I've gone through section by section, kind of estimating the time that I'd like to run in order to make the cutoff. So every checkpoint, every aid station has a cutoff time that you have to get to or your race is over. They start out at 12.6 miles and then go to 23 miles and then 30 miles and then on, and there's cutoffs along the way. So the pace is very critical to maintain in order to actually make the cutoffs and make it in. So you can't take too much time at aid station. The clock is always running. So it'll be grab and go at different aid station. I'll have drop bags that I'll have to place. And so it's a pretty complicated event all in all. We have a major hub, which is a crewing station they're called outbound, that everybody goes out and kind of parks a car and has some tents. And there's another one out at Twin Lakes. I'll have 2 pacers. Michael will pick me up and pace me for 15 miles starting at mile 62. And then another friend Sandy, who I've had on the podcast, will pick me up and pace me from outbound to May Queen. And then our very own registered dietitian, Addie, will pace me in from May Queen to the finish line. So I got to get there to get to my pacers. And so that's really what I'm aiming at, is to be able to get to my pacers and finally see some familiar faces. And there'll be a lot of troubleshooting along the way. The best laid plans, there'll always be things that happen in something that lasts 30 hours. Something will not go quite up to snuff, and there'll have to be adjustments made and troubleshooting along the way. The idea is to keep my head screwed on, keep a positive attitude, troubleshoot along the way, and have a good time and appreciate the beauty, because that's a large reason why I'm there, is the beauty of that area and being able to share that with friends and family. So I'm all excited to get out there. It's going to be a fun time. I'm going to give it my best effort and try to enjoy every moment, even when the moments are hurting a little bit. So, other news, President Trump is bringing back the National Physical Fitness Challenge. I am young enough to remember when it was that we had to do in PE class, and it's now coming back. And I hope that all the classes and schools bring it back. But I kind of thought about, well, why don't adults do it? It might be good. Why do you stop? It actually stops at age 17 as far as the requirements and what happens and what the scoring system is. And I'll put a link in the podcast that you can actually look it up. But it includes a curl up, which is sit up, a shuttle run that you put 2 erasers, if you remember that, 30 feet from the start. You go back and forth. A V sit, you sit in a V and reach forward, so it looks at mobility. A 1 mile run, timed, and for each age group, and boys and girls, men and women, they have times. A pull-up or a hang, so hanging from a bar or doing pull-ups, and push-ups that are specific form as far as right angle. So look those up and see, how far you are from passing the physical fitness test. I think it could be a good way to kind of assess, even if you get to the ground and you see if you can do a sit-up, do a plank. That's the 2025 version of a curl-up. The shuttle run would be great to see. Run 30 feet. It'd be great to do with your kids or your grandkids. 30 feet apart, run back and forth. V-sit is a great mobility challenge for your hamstrings, quadriceps, ankles. Of course, the 1 mile run we all love. Why not do 100? And then hanging can be very good for your grip. So even if you're not doing pull-ups or a chin-up would be with your palms facing you. Pull-up would be with your palms away from you. But just hanging from a bar can really increase your grip and has been associated with longevity, because if you can typically hang 30 seconds as an adult, it's actually a pretty good sign. So give that a shot. It's also good to get your back stretched out. While you're there, you can do some knee raises. And so you can use a hanging bar. You can get the ones, just on Amazon, you put over the door frame, and they're actually very good and sturdy. It's what I use. And it can be, something that reminds you, go through the closet door to, grab on and hang every morning. And then, of course, push-ups. Plank would be an alternative to that, but doing push-ups has also been associated with longevity, so practicing on that form. So it applies to people of all ages when you get down to it, so give it a shot. I got a question, and I've had the question before. Do I think that do parasites cause cancer? Do bacteria cause cancer? Is that the root of all cancers? It's not what people say it is. And there's a lot of press about it, and a lot of things are taken out of context. But the reality of it is parasites and bacteria are associated with cancer, but they're not necessarily a cause of cancer in isolation, as is anything else. So in some respects, it's really not the bugs that's causing the cancer, it's the environment of the host, which would be the person or animal, that allows the bacteria or parasite to to grow and become more virulent. And that comes down to environmental factors associated with the parasites and bacteria, as well as your own immune system. Your immune system, your immune function, your white blood cell function, your microbiome's ability to turn on, turn off immune protein production, the pH of your blood, the oxygen contents, the nutrients that you eat, and of course the bacteria that's in on your body, in your body, various places. We'll never make our bodies sterile. We'll never make our environment sterile. And every attempt to do that has resulted in superbugs or other things that take over. Mother Nature always wins. When we try to sterilize our mouths with Listerine, we actually decrease the bacteria that can help produce nitric oxide. And we also selected for superbugs, or bugs that were more virulent. When we have high blood sugars, high glucoses, diabetes, we can get our bacteria environment out of whack, so to speak, where staph can take over. So bacteria that were contained by healthy bacteria may start to overgrow. If our environment is unclean, as far as, unsanitary conditions with waste products, with environmental toxins and pollutants, it makes bacteria and parasite, it makes that milieu unequal or out of check, and bad things can happen. So it's not just parasites that we have to get rid of. We used to think we had to get rid of bacteria, so again, we went with the Listerine and the Clorox wipes and the Lysol and the big potent killers that we kill bacteria, and we selected out for superbugs. The cleanest a hospital ever will be is the first day it opens, because the bacterial environment in a hospital is kind of controlled. It is what's natural, but when we start using potent cleaners and antibiotics and various products, the bacteria that can survive that becomes much more dangerous, to the point where we call, a bacteria that occurs in a hospital, it's a much worse bacteria. People that have a pneumonia and get antibiotics, especially very potent IV antibiotics or multiple antibiotics in a row, can select out for a bacteria called C. difficile, which can cause severe diarrhea and colitis and can be deadly. And it's mainly because that bacteria can live. Most people have heard of MRSA or meth-resistant staph. It often occurs because people have had multiple antibiotics and selected for this bacteria that's resistant to other antibiotics. Often these people are also immunocompromised, so they're diabetic. Pseudomonas is another one. So there's a variety of bacteria that can cause harm, and parasites as well. And some of the bacteria that can cause cancer: hepatitis C, hepatitis B, papillomavirus, and varieties of other viruses can cause cancer, and so can parasites. But they don't act alone. They have to act in an environment where it's able to grow. So one of the most potent parasites that cause cancer: schistosoma, cryptosporidium, toxoplasmosa, and they typically occur in environments where unsanitary conditions occur, and bad water, again, in people with poor immune systems. Some parasites actually promote health. They can decrease the cancer, such as Plasmodium that causes malaria, can actually decrease hepatocellular cancer, so it provides some resistance. Some decrease the proliferation of cancer cells. So it depends on what the environment is that causes a parasite to act as far as to harm us or to provide protection. Plasmodium is a parasite associated with Burkitt's lymphoma, but it also needs another virus to promote in order to help promote its ability to cause that cancer. Of course, H. pylori is a bacteria that is associated with gastric cancer, but it typically occurs in people with a pH that have a certain diet and a certain debilitation of their gastrointestinal tract. Some parasites come from fish. So in certain places where the water is dirty, fish carry these parasites, and people that eat raw fish are more in danger. But again, other nutrients that people eat that are associated with inflammation and oxidative stress end up causing problems as well. So again, it comes back to nothing happens in a vacuum. This inflammation and oxidative stress in our nutrition and in our environment keeps coming back with regards to not only infection, but with cardiovascular disease and with cancer. And it all backs up to us, the host. Are we healthy to begin with? So people that are very young, a weakened immune system, people that have had cancer, the elderly, those are the people that are most vulnerable. And then if you put them in an environment that is uncleaned with poor sanitation, dirty water, fish farming in places where they do that, it increases the risk. So when, people say, oh, I like my seafood or I like my fish, sushi may not be all that it's cracked up to. we were in Colorado and they were talking about, having sushi, and somebody said, like, well, it's one place I would never eat sushi is in Colorado because it's locked in where there's no oceans near Colorado, so it has to be flown in. So when you think about where things come from, most of the shrimp is farmed that people eat, and they don't think anything of it, but it's grown in very, very dirty waters and polluted waters, so carries a host of problems that might occur. But these typical parasitic infections, especially to the degree where they cause so much harm that they typically cause infection before they would cause harm to the point of causing cancer. And people have symptoms from it. It just doesn't, we're just not walking around with parasites that are taking over our body like some sort of sci-fi movie. Most people have symptoms, say persistent diarrhea, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, unexplained weight loss, severe fatigue, rashes, abnormal white blood cell counts, perhaps cultures. But, oftentimes, again, these things are blamed for everything, and let's just clean these out of your body and take these supplements and it'll get rid of it. And that's not necessarily true or, foolproof by any stretch of the imagination. So I would encourage, if you thought you had some of these signs and symptoms or exposures or a weakened immune system, then you would seek medical attention to try to see whether this might be a problem or not. But there are certain foods you can eat that help to eliminate parasites or decrease their growth, and they're typical plant-based foods, which is somewhat amazing because it all comes back to nutrition. Again, that when we eat a healthy diet, it promotes healthy immune system and it promotes decreased oxidative state. It usually produces a more alkaline pH. And with those nutrients come a lot of anti-cancer properties and antibacterial properties and anti-parasitic properties. And one of the ones that stands out big time is garlic. So, feel free to use all the garlic that you can. Fresh is great, but any way that you can. Pumpkin seeds are another good seed that has parasitic fighting capacities. Papaya seeds, which are eaten a lot in Costa Rica. They have a very low incidence of gastric and GI cancers there. Pomegranate seeds, ginger, turmeric, fiber-rich foods, think feeding good gut bacteria. Beets, carrots, think color, antioxidants, decrease blood vessel growth into tumors. Clove, oregano, honey. We know that Manuka honey especially, but any raw honey has a lot of antimicrobial properties to it. Berries, onions, pineapple, fennel, all the things that we typically tell people to eat to fight infection and improve their immune system also helps against other more harmful bacteria and parasites. Notice that I didn't mention anything that's on a carnivore diet. We know that when you eat meat, you stimulate the bacteria in your gut to produce TMAO, which is an inflammatory protein that leads to increased cardiovascular disease and a whole host of other things. Inflammatory proteins also increase the risk of cancer. So, not only does eating meat potentially contain some of the parasites and bacteria if it's not well cooked, but it's certainly not doing anything to protect you. The bottom line is nothing acts in isolation. You need a host or a person that is compromised, an environment that's not healthy, and then other things to potentiate these parasites. So they don't just grab you out of the dark. You've got to have kind of the perfect storm in all of this stuff. So number one, I would say, is make yourself as healthy as you can. Eat a plant-based diet, which is very colorful. Look at your plate. Do you have all the colors? Are you using a wide variety of spices? Are you eating a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables? That's your number one protection against infection and cancer. We tell people that if they're getting sick to bump up their vitamin C intake. How better to bump up your vitamin C intake than to bump up your fruit intake? And this is the time of the year where we can all get fruit. Watermelon is on every corner. I get a large one at Sam's every week, and we cut it up and have it ready to go. And it's rich in vitamin C. Cherries are in season. Berries are in seasons. Peaches are in season. So eat what's in season. Eat locally, and that can improve your health overall. And eating fruits is going to increase your pH. People think that citric actually makes your gut acidic, but it doesn't. So any fruit will increase your pH. Vegetables increase your pH. High-protein diets are going to decrease your pH. Meat-based diets are going to decrease your pH. So we're not victims. We have the opportunity to eat healthy and protect ourselves. We don't have to worry about doing all these things to eliminate parasites from our diet. I did come across one supplement that was I couldn't help from clicking on. It's called Paraguardian capsules, and it's I had to see what's on it. And basically, it's some of the extracts like I talked to, and one of the things was pumpkin seeds. And it's like, so how many? If something has about if you take a supplement and it has 12 or 13 things in it, how much of any of those things could it possibly have? And so this particular substance had 28 milligrams of pumpkin seeds. So I thought, well, is 28 milligrams of pumpkin seeds a lot of pumpkin seed material? The reality of it is one pumpkin seed weighs 84 milligrams. So one pumpkin seed is more than the pumpkin seed you're going to get into the capsule. So you're better to eat the real food most of the time. When we're trying to get large doses of vitamin C or large doses of a nutrient, then you want to go to an isolated supplement that we treat like a medicine as opposed to just a supplement. But without the exception of vitamin C, again, getting things naturally is much better for you. The other thing that came upon this week was calcium score. And how do you, if you have a 0 calcium score, can you keep a 0 calcium score? And as we know, calcium in the vasculature is depositive, and it's a sign of a healing plaque. So a plaque is soft originally. It actually starts out when we're children. The first atherosclerosis can be in less than 10-year-old children, especially on a bad diet. They start out as what's called a foam cell. And if you look at the vessel wall, you can see an abnormality, certainly with a microscope, but you have these abnormal cells that kind of grow into a plaque. And then the plaque over time becomes raised, and the plaque can rupture. And if it ruptures completely, it can cause a heart attack. But if it just has a little rupture, it can actually calcify down. So as we age and blood goes through our vessels and blood goes around corners in our blood vessels and there's turbulence, there is a bit of a scarring inside the blood vessel wall, and there's plaque formation and then calcification of that plaque, and we develop a calcium score. People are on the internet all the time bragging about their 0 calcium score, but they're 30 or 40 years old. And 30 or 40-year-old, you can't see anything. If the best thing they're going to have is a soft plaque. And there have been some studies on a carnivore diet that people do get soft plaques that's measurable in their 30s and 40s. Those people should watch out because that plaque progresses and you can have a problem. But for the most part, you can't see anything with a 30 or 40-year-old. You don't get calcified vessels, so you're wasting your money and you're getting unnecessary radiation to get a calcium score. But if you were part of a study and you got a calcium score and it was 0 and you want to figure out whether or not you can keep a 0 score, there was a study that looked at 3,416 people, and they looked at whether smoking, physical activity, diet, body mass index, their lipid profile, their glucose profile, their blood pressure, typical risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Did they make a difference when it came to your calcium score over time? And so they looked at people, they divided them whether they were in good health, which were 27% or 911 people. They looked at people intermediate health, 63%, and those were the risk factors that they had. And then they looked at people with low cardiovascular health, 10%. So they had, a lot of those: smoking, physical activity, diet, BMI, lipid, glucose, blood pressure checked. And they looked at races. 44.5% were black, 29% were Hispanic, 22% were white, and 3% were Chinese. And they followed them for up to 9 years. And they even had 25% of people that were over 65 years of age at baseline. And what they found out was that the zero calcium scores became abnormal in age 45 to 64 at about 2 years. The curve started to separate. The people that had the highest health made it about 1.5 years, the intermediate about 1 year. If you were over 65 and you had a zero calcium score, your rate of getting calcium in your arteries were about the same, regardless of what was going on. And it didn't stay zero very long. They didn't look at hard outcomes such as whether you died or you had a heart attack or a cardiovascular event. It was just calcium score. So what does it mean? Basically, that over 7 years follow-up, most people got some calcium in their arteries. It was a little bit worse if you had poorer health, but over the years, especially after age 65, people start to develop calcium in their arteries. Doesn't mean they have heart attacks in their arteries. It just means that their arteries are showing some wear and tear. And most people would say that's probably accurate. Most people over 65 show some wear and tear. People complain about their knees, their joints, their skin. Arteries can't stay, perfect either. So there is wear and tear. The question is, how functional are they? And the reality of it is that comes back down to those risk factors and people's overall health. People that are healthy, that exercise, don't have events. People that are unhealthy tend to have events. Doesn't really pan out with the calcium score so much as it does with overall underlying health. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So the people that have soft plaque, those are the people that are at risk for a plaque rupture and a heart attack. Once that plaque calcifies, that part of the artery is probably pretty stable. The idea is to decrease our risk factors so that we don't lay down a tremendous amount of plaque and keep that plaque at a minimum. But blood is flowing through arteries that go around curves, and there's turbulence, there's high heart rates, there's low heart rates, there's dehydration, there's hydration. So things happen over the years with every heartbeat and other factors in the blood, whether people have diabetes or infections, inflammation, all those things go together to cause a plaque and to cause a plaque to potentially rupture. We don't see just one thing inside a plaque and the anatomy of a plaque. So again, it comes back to what you can do, and getting tests aren't necessarily a safety precaution. They may tell you the result of some of your efforts, whether your weight is going down, your blood pressure is going down, your lipid profile is getting a little bit better, your functional capacity is getting better, your grip strength is getting better, your ability to do push-ups is getting better, your walk time is getting better. Those are all great prognostic indicators. But getting a test that maybe gives you a good outcome now doesn't really predict the future that much, because a lot can happen, especially when everybody's a little bit different and risk factors that they keep. When people are eating out, I talked to somebody that had 2 meals a day, Dunkin' Donut meal, and as well as a Chili's meal almost every day. So Dunkin' Donuts coffee with creamers, that artificial substances in it, plus sugar, plus bacon, sodium, all the things that are in the bacon, the eggs, the rolls, the conditioners, all the different chemicals that you can come up with that are in the breakfast, and then repeat that but different at lunchtime. You don't have any control. You don't have any control about where that food was grown, what additives were used, what toxins are used, what microplastics are involved in the preparation, or how it's stored, the cleanliness of it. Talk about parasites and bacteria. So when you're eating out, you're at the mercy of the restaurant that you're eating out in. And if you follow any kind of, you can go online and see which restaurants in your local area have been dinged by the health department for low temperatures. And there's, or seeing different bugs in the place or mice in the place or whatever. I mean, just those alone, they can't be everywhere, the health department. And so you're really taking a risk. If you're worried about parasites or bacteria, or you're worried about toxins, then eating out is not the place to go. If you go to the grocery store, you can pick your own vegetables, try to eat organic, you try to eat local, clean your own food, prepare it in such a way that is healthy, and you have a much better chance at keeping your environment clean and decreasing the other risk factors that some of these things you don't have control of. So we worry about things we can't control, but there's so many things that we can control, and we neglect worrying about it or just have hope that it's all going to work out because somebody's looking out after us with testing. And or we'll take in a supplement that has, one fraction of what the whole food would have in it. So don't fool yourself into thinking that you can do all these other things, but take a pill here or a supplement here and be an okay, or I'm good most of the time. Take a look at your own environment and the things you control. And that's what I'm going to do next week when I race the Leadville 100. I'm going to look at all the things I can control and not worry about the things that might happen, but deal with the present as much as I possibly can. Keep a good mental attitude and look to do the best that I can, and the rest of it will take care of itself. I'm going to be signing off for the next couple of weeks. So the next podcast you hear from me will be a race report of our experience at the Leadville 100. You can go on over to the Leadville Race Series if you want to follow Jami Dulaney. You can and see how things are going. But otherwise, I'll give you all the nitty-gritty details on the next episode. Thank you as always for listening. Share this with your friends. Eat healthy. Keep control of your own food. Don't forget to exercise. Keep your environment healthy.